welcome to the monthly webinar series with CWNP, and we're glad to have you on board here for the first one officially of summer. I'm glad that summer started. I'm from Ohio, and so around here in Ohio, we enjoy our short summer and take advantage of it as much as possible. But we are glad to have you with us today. And before we get into our content today, I just want to remind everyone that our Wi-Fi Trek conference is coming up here in October. If you have not learned about it and don't know all the details about that conference, make sure you go to cwnp.com, click on the banner ad for the conference there, and you can learn all about the conference. If you have questions, want to know about what the options are for attending and so forth, you can email Julie at julie@cwnp.com. That's Julie, Julie, at cwnp.com, or you can email customer care at cwnp.com, and we'll be glad to help you get whatever information you need to get ready for that conference. With that said, we are here today to talk about Wi-Fi roaming, one of the really major pain points in wireless networking, because there are so many variations in how clients implement their roaming algorithms. So today we'll be getting some insights into these roaming factors and the importance of understanding it for wireless design, implementation, management, and so on. And we have the expert with us today, VP, the Chief Innovation Officer and founder of 7Signal, who develops some excellent wireless monitoring, analysis, troubleshooting tools to help you have a well-managed wireless network that functions good, not just when you first implement it, but throughout the life cycle of that wireless LAN. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to VP. He can tell you more about himself and 7Signal, and then we'll get right into the roaming topics. At the end of the presentation, we will have time for Q&A as well. And remember, all of our webinars are recorded and archived on the CWNP TV YouTube channel. With that, VP, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thanks, Tom. Very nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me to talk here about roaming. I'm very excited about this topic. It's a challenge for Wi-Fi networks, as you mentioned. I'm with 7Signal. We are a Wi-Fi performance management company. We are based in Ohio, and we offer products for optimizing, managing Wi-Fi performance and end user experience. We have two product lines. We have 7Signal Sapphire and 7Signal Mobileye. Sapphire uses purpose-built sensors, and Mobileye uses agents which go into Windows, Mac OS, Android, and iOS platforms to measure how the Wi-Fi is working and finding the bottlenecks in the Wi-Fi networks. So, but we are going to focus today to the roaming, and often it's a major challenge in Wi-Fi. And the goal of my presentation is to help understand how roaming works, and as well give some ideas on improving roaming performance. So those two are my main goals. So I have structured my presentation so that I will first cover some principles of roaming, then some standards which contribute to the roaming, and what are the contributions from them. We are going to talk about those. Then some network configuration aspects, how to configure the network so that it works well, and then talk about client support. Which client supports certain, standards. That's a big theme in roaming. There is so much variation, and then finally some examples in the roaming analysis. So that's my basic structure here. All right, good. So let's get started. And so roaming obviously is needed because Wi-Fi coverage is made by combining coverage from several access points, and there of course can be a lot of them. And when you have a lot of access points, you will get a continuous coverage there, and this enables mobility in Wi-Fi. So that's obviously one very critical factor. Mobility in Wi-Fi may not have been there in day one, and it's being added there gradually over the years. And there are some great enhancements into it, but it's still often kind of a tricky area to make it work well. So with the roaming, what you usually are looking at there is coverage areas and then signal strengths, which are the basic factors determining how and where the client should roam. So that's really the core of the roaming. We will get much deeper into that in a moment. So we will focus into layer 2 roaming in this presentation. So layer 2 roaming is essentially between access points, while layer 3 roaming might be, for example, between access points which are under different controllers. But focus is in layer 2 roaming here. Overall, roaming decisions are made by the clients. So they make always the final decisions. There are different ways of providing them information about the conditions in the network, or network might be giving suggestions that why don't you roam, but it's the client device that end of the day will make the decision. And since these decisions are done by the client devices, and the drivers are most often custom and not kind of standardized, then there is a large variation between devices. So this is a big factor and big challenge in roaming. So different drivers, different Wi-Fi chipsets behave differently. So to kind of counteract that network side, there are a number of techniques used to help with the roaming, and we will get into that in a moment. So overall, the challenge with the roaming is that you would want to have continuous connectivity. You don't want to have any gaps in the connectivity, especially when you are using some real-time applications, like, for example, voice. So you want to have very short break there when you roam from one access point to another access point, and continuously have a service there. Overall, enterprises should use strong security like WBA2 Enterprise, and the challenge with the roaming is that roaming itself without kind of security is pretty fast and easy, but when you add there those security aspects, then it gets trickier. All right, so layer 2 roaming phases. The roaming starts really with scanning. So the clients scan the surroundings, the air, to observe and find what access points are there as a roaming candidates. So there is an active scanning and passive scanning. Once the client decides to roam, it will make an open authentication request to the target access point. So this after the decision, the first phase is really open authentication, and then that is followed by reassociation. So this is the process when you are running open network without any further security or encryption there. When you are running full 802.1x EAP authentications, there are more phases. So the next phase, if you have EAP, is to do the radius authentication, which may include and includes a number of phases and can take a long time. And many of the techniques added to the Wi-Fi are addressing making that phase shorter or skipping that phase when you are roaming between access points. Okay, and then the final phase with the roaming is the four-way handshake, where the encryption keys are created so that the traffic is encrypted. So these are the main phases in the roaming. So scanning, then open authentication, reassociation, then doing the EAP authentication, and then doing the four-way handshake. So those are the main phases. All right. So clients, the important factor here. So they make the final decision, and there are two kind of ways they complete this roaming. So they might be kind of proactive. They might be preemptively preparing for the roaming, and then in this case they are doing some passive scans, some active scans before they conclude that now it's time to roam. The other type of clients are those who decide that I am now out of coverage, I don't have service, I need to roam, and then start this discovery process. And obviously the preemptive discovery method is better. So there are certain kind of rough guidelines for the signal levels for different phases in the roaming. So active scanning usually starts at -65 to 70 dBm. Before that, it's just passive scanning. And then roaming happens usually around -70, -75 dBms. And the factors which impact these roaming decisions can be many. And these are obviously vendor specific, and there is very limited information available on these because they are, excuse me, confidential. So typically they include factors like signal strength, signal to noise ratio, missed beacons, retries, data rates, bit rate, and CRC. I mean, it can be a combination of these, and usually it is a combination of these. Signal strength being the main factor. So that's usually the leading factor. So there are kind of two phases. There is, determining that there is a need to roam, and then deciding, that now triggering the roaming, I need to roam now. So certain metrics are used for that decision, and then secondly, another set of metrics is used for determining which AP the client should roam to. Usually, it's the signal strength that is used to define which AP is the roaming target. Okay, so while the client makes the roaming, there is some activity in the backend as well, and what's happening there is that and by the way, this is something what is vendor specific, and it's not included in the standards. But when a client decides to roam, after it makes the reassociation request, there is some backend activity, and depending whether you have controller or something, but usually the kind of target AP will talk back to the original AP and tell it that I have a client here. So if you are buffering traffic, please send it to me. So then this earlier original AP will send the buffered data to the target AP, which will then send it to the eventually to the client, which is roaming. So there is some backend processing happening here for the data streams and some storage and or buffering, and then feeding in the buffer information back to the client after the roaming is completed. And this requires that the access points either use controller or they can see each other and talk to each other at the edge of the network. Okay, now here is an example of different factors impacting to the roaming. So what we have here is that here is an application stream. This example includes UDP stream like a voice. There is a stream of packets sent towards a client, and then here is a stream of received packets. And while we are here, this is access point 1, and while we are here, this is access point 2. So at the time of the roaming, during the roaming, there is no connectivity, and then after the connectivity is returned, some of the packets may be buffered and returned there. So what's happening with the in the RF side during the roaming. So first, while the signal level is getting lower here, first the client might be doing passive scanning, very rarely, maybe every few minutes, for example, just to get information about the surroundings. And when the signal levels get lower, it will start active scanning, meaning it will start probing at all the channels to learn about the other access points. And while signal levels continues to go lower, eventually the client will decide to roam and the signal levels go back up. So what happens with some of the other metrics is while the signal levels get lower, here are some examples. For example, the used MCSs will go lower. So as well, the retries usually increase, and beacons, how well the client is receiving the beacons, it gets less reliable. So the beacons may not be always delivered reliably. And after the roaming decision is done, then again all these matrices look good until it's again time to roam to the next access point. So this is how the overall roaming and the RF side of the roaming works. Okay, now when we talk about the authentication and the security side, there are differences between different methods and levels of security. So open authentication, open network, it's pretty easy to handle. So there is only open authentication and then the association phase, and it's a fast process. Web is as well fast and simple. And WPA2 and PSK adds basically their four-way handshake. But there is no other, key handling yet. And WPA2 and PSK, roaming is pretty fast still and easy to handle. When it gets trickier is when .1x radius is included in this process, and it adds usually a lot of time here to do that process. And it may be up, even seconds in some cases. But it adds a lot of delay. Now, then there are methods to improve this, and we are going to look at some of these improved technologies like CCKM, PMK caching, pre-authentication, opportunistic key caching, and .11r fast transitions next. So how do they work? How do they help? Okay, so Cisco CTX program was one of the early technologies helping roaming, and Cisco offers CCKM technology, and then as well CCX offers some measurement capabilities which can be used to make better roaming decisions. Obviously, this requires that the access points and then the clients support this functionality, because this is not a standardized functionality. It's a Cisco technology. So you need to have similar CCX level clients as you have the access point capabilities, and make sure that all that is there to make it work. But it was one of the early helps to or technologies to support roaming. Okay, then about the standards. So we are not going to go into a lot of details into these, but there are a number of standards helping roaming. And the most important ones really right now, and the ones that get most focus right now, are the R, V, and K. And R is a kind of roaming focus standard, and it removes the need to authenticate, use the radius authentication during the roaming. So that helps a lot with the speed, but there has to be the support available. V on the other hand, offers especially BSS transition management. We will look into this in a moment. It will help clients to make better decisions. And K offers especially neighbor reports, which provide clients information about surrounding APs, and it will help clients to find the right AP by limiting the need for scanning. Then E includes QBSS metrics, which can be used by clients to determine whether a certain target access point is a good candidate or not. Then there are other standards. Some of them a little bit older, some of them newer. Like I was the original, big standard for the security enhancements. And that now one of the most recent ones, fast initial link setup, will be helping with the initial authentication association phases, making those faster. Usually they take time, even when you are using, for example, R or some of the mechanisms. So the first time always is still slow and may take time, and AI will help with that. Okay, so let's look at some of these technologies. So PMK caching or fast secure roamback is one standardized method. So in essence, it is that once you roam to certain access point, your first roam may be slow. You need to authenticate, use .1x EAP completely. But once you authenticate, the keys are stored then. And if you come back, then the roaming is fast. But it doesn't help roaming forward. So it was of limited, benefit, because usually roaming may, keep going forward. Another one is pre-authentication. So this is that all the keys will be done up front. So you have all the keys in all the APs and clients. This one had a challenge with the scalability. So then there is an application or kind of a derivative of the pre-authentication called opportunistic PMK caching. So that means that you don't create key pairs with all and everything, but you kind of predict that which APs will need the keys with certain clients, and then this will help with the roaming, so you don't need to do the full EAP authentication there, and it will be much faster. So that's a widely used technology. Okay, then a little bit more about the R, V, and K. And so R is basically allows the clients to avoid doing the EAP authentication after the initial authentication. So when the clients roam, this has been taken care of already, so beforehand. So when the clients roam, they use pre-stored keys. So basically, they have to do only open authentication, reassociation, and four-way handshake to roam. So this helps to get to sub 50 millisecond handoff delay. So it's a great standard, but it has a challenge that it is not widely adopted yet, or let's say it's starting to get a well adopted by certain devices, but not by all devices. And what is the most difficult thing with this is that some clients do not cooperate with access points which have R enabled. So if you enable R, there may be clients which do not cooperate, and that is obviously a major problem then. So you need to ensure that compatibility before you turn on R standard. Okay, then the K and neighbor reports. That's the main part from roaming point of view, but it is not the only part. There are many other aspects as well included in case standard than neighbor reports, for example, like beacon measurements, so that clients can measure and send information to access point, and many other statistics which can be used in the roaming decisions. So what K provides is that client can report from access points information about the other access points nearby. So when client submits this request to the AP will submit list of access points with the strongest signal level, and this will help the client to scan only those channels which actually have access points with good signal levels. So this will help clients find the target access points faster, because they don't need to scan all the channels. They only scan the ones which are actually used by nearby access points. So this will help with the roaming speed and finding the right access points. Of course, the drawback is that this measurement is done by the access point, not the client. So the access point view may be slightly different than the client's view, but in any case, it will help significantly with the roaming. And as well, it will help reducing the utilization in the network. And then BSS transition management is another great standard. Again, roaming, it's not only roaming related, offers a number of improvements beyond roaming, but especially the BSS transition management part can be very helpful. So BSS transition management offers clients capability to ask from access point better access point. Okay, tell me, client may ask AP, okay, tell me what is a better access point, and AP will respond. AP may ask client to roam, so for the load balancing purposes, or some other purposes, like client is having low signal level at the AP. And as well, network may kind of force the client to roam by issuing a disassociation imminent and disconnecting eventually the client completely, and forcing the client to move to another AP. So these capabilities give some control to the network to control the client behavior when they support V standard. And more of these capabilities are being added to the products as we move forward and give more help with the roaming. Okay, Cisco has come up with a technology called adaptive R, and the purpose of this standard is to overcome some of the challenges with the R. So if you enable R, some clients cannot interpret basically the beacons and probe responses, and this is a kind of derivative or variation of R, which works only between Cisco access points and certain Apple devices, and it's basically the R authentication, but it is not advertised in the beacons or probe responses. So there is another means for clients and APs to figure out whether this R is supported, and that's proprietary between Apple and Cisco, and then they can complete the roaming successfully without the need to have the R enabled for all the devices. So this is a kind of a new technology there. All right. So Wi-Fi Alliance has a certification program called Voice Enterprise, and they certify devices there with the predetermined tests, and make sure that especially roaming works well, and many other performance factors as well. And it includes R K and E as mandatory, and then the V standard as optional. Okay, so layer 3 roaming, we are not going to cover that here, but what it is that if you move from controller to another controller, there can be some tunneling used basically to maintain the connection and not to drop it completely while moving between the controllers. Okay, now let's move on to the kind of network configuration side and some more details to the roaming factors. So clients do active scans and passive scans. And passive scan is essentially client going to just listen to different channels for a short period of time, and then trying to figure out, are there access points beaconing on that channel. So it's a fully passive method, jumping from channel to channel, finding if there are beacons. And obviously the challenge is that beacon interval usually 102 milliseconds, and if the client is transmitting actively traffic, it cannot be off channel for a long time. So it's very hard for a client to actually be there on the channel at the time the beacon is out and find the access point. So that's one of the challenges there with the passive scanning. So to kind of counteract some of these difficulties, there is active scan, which then goes off channel, sends probe requests, again at all channels, and gets a probe request, and then gets the information about the other access points, and then quickly gets information about the surrounding APs. Of course, this will create some traffic to the network. It is a faster way, but it will obviously as well consume some, battery and bring more traffic to the network. So both are usually used, but really the active scans are, used when a client is approaching a level where the signal levels gets too low or quality gets too low. It will actively start scanning, meaning actively start probing. Okay. There are other methods to handle the traffic. So well, the first connection to the access point is really defined mostly by the signal level. So when you have a new client looking for Wi-Fi, it will look at the signal levels from different access points, and usually signal level is really the factor which determines where the client connects first. So for this reason, it's important to have the 5 gigahertz strong enough so that clients would go always first to the 5 gigs. Then there is a band steering tendency. So network can steer clients to the 5 gigahertz band by withholding probe responses, and then allowing clients to scan longer time 5 gigahertz band and connect there. Load balancing can use similar methods. So to kind of force the clients to the other AP to balance traffic between APs nearby. And then there is a kind of smart roaming feature, which is more like a brute force often. So AP may disconnect the client completely if the signal level is too low. And this means that the client needs to find the better AP. And of course, if you are at the edge of the network, then you might get connected early with this feature on. Okay. So so here are 2 access points, and this is how the RF works and how the math works between the access points. So this is known, RF attenuation is known. It's not linear, but it's known to, you get 6 dB attenuation, and that doubles the distance. So between the cells, there is certain overlap. And when clients kind of signal level gets lower, they will start to have kind of double coverage here, and eventually they will decide to roam. Now the challenge is that if clients use only signal level as a determining factor for triggering the roaming, it may mean that, especially if this level is pretty low, it may mean that clients are very close to the other access point when they finally decide to roam. So this is a typical challenge with Wi-Fi roaming, that it doesn't happen here around the overlap area, but it happens typically quite a bit after it, and then there is a big jump in signal level. So ideally, this roaming should happen closer to this area, but in practice, it often happens here, and that's the reason sometimes when you are, troubleshooting roaming, you might see that you are under the next AP, but you still are hanging to the previous one. So this might be the reason. Okay, so roaming on DFS channels, that can be a challenge because probing is not allowed on DFS channels until a client receives a beacon there. So you have to get the beacon first, and then you are allowed to probe. So this obviously has impact to the roaming, because you have to do passive scanning basically first, and only after that you can roam. So roaming on DFS channels is more difficult than in the non-DFS channels. Another factor here is the hidden SSIDs. So you basically, actually I was probably mixing this a lot. Yeah, actually I was not, sorry. So hidden SSIDs. You don't get the SSID name with the beacons because it's hidden. Basically, it's removed. So you don't get the channel information as well from the current AP as you get with the non-hidden APs. So hidden SSIDs in the DFS channels is even a little bit more difficult, because you cannot probe before you have received one beacon. And the beacon doesn't need to have SSID name. So it's okay if you receive a beacon even with hidden SSID, then the client will start is allowed to start probing. So these impact the roaming further. One method used to improve roaming is to disable lower data rates. And what this does is that at a greater distance, the client does not anymore receive beacons reliably. So it means that it will help it to start probing earlier and start the roaming process earlier. So this can help sometimes with the roaming, and it's kind of best practice to do this to help roaming. QBSS metrics, clients can use QBSS metrics like channel utilization to decide to which AP to roam to. So this in practice means that if there is a very busy cell and client is moving through it, it might not still roam to that, but it might roam to another access point nearby which has lower load. So it's good to acknowledge that this can happen. Apple iOS 10 forward can support this and utilizes this information, so it's good to know. RRM, or automation overall, can impact roaming as well. There can be variation in power levels and channels, and obviously there are DFS channels and non-DFS channels, so this all may impact to the roaming and change the pattern there. A little bit information about the clients. So it's hard to find details of the clients what comes to the support for different standards, but here is some information. So Mac OS monitors and maintains the connection until -75 dBms. And after that, it will roam when there is a PSSID available, which is 12 dB stronger than the current BSSID. So macOS maintains the connection pretty long, and that's good to recognize and notice that what the implication may be to the roaming. So it may feel a little bit sticky there. Mac OS does not support V and K. It doesn't support either R, so that's good to know. iOS, on the other hand, starts probing at -70 dBm, and then it has 8 dB and 12 dB rules here. So if connection is being actively used, there has to be 8 dB better signal level in the target AP before the roaming is triggered. And if the connection is not actively used, the difference has to be larger, 12 dB. So this is to avoid the kind of ping pong there. So iOS supports pretty well RK and V. Android, there's a lot of variance between Android devices, so that's even harder area, to find details. But Androids generally use SNR as the main factor for roaming, and it's very vendor specific what is supported, what is not. And here is some information about that. So Androids are getting, as well the RK and V support already, but it's vendor specific, as said. Okay, Windows generally has RK and V support, but again, it's very manufacturer and driver specific. Intel has specific controls available for roaming, but they are not well documented. Means that it's hard to tell what these settings actually do and how much help you will get from the, setting the roaming to the highest. It's unclear whether it's the threshold or the number of probes or what is the key factor there. Okay, then I have a couple of examples here about some networks. This data is from our products, and we have worked with customers and help them to optimize network performance, and these are some examples. So the first one is an arena, and it's an NBA arena. A lot of clients there, and we help to optimize the overall performance of the arena, and then as well, the roaming behavior. So in this example, this is a graph showing average number of clients per access point in the bowl area, and this is about 1 month, and each dot is 1 hour average, and then there is one line for each band, like 5 gigs and 2.4. Blue is 5 gigs, and then there are a couple of optimization rounds done here. So you can see how, and these are the events obviously in the arena, so you can see how after a number of changes we managed to get a ton of more clients to the network being served, and the 5 gigahertz usage increased dramatically, and overall number of clients served increased dramatically. So while we achieved this increase in number of served clients, this is something else what was happening. So overall air utilization did not significantly increase. So it remained pretty flat, which is interesting. So where did this extra capacity come from? Well, first of all, the beacon utilization went down during the optimization rounds. So beacons took less airtime, which you can see here. Even more importantly, probe responses, the airtime required by probe responses went significantly down. It was at 90% 90% of the airtime was used by probe responses. That came down to 11%. So we were able to free up airtime by making sure clients are connected to the right band, to the right AP, power levels, data rates, band steering, all this was operating properly. So great results there. Another example is a hospital where we help with VoIP client roaming. And we were looking at one specific floor there where there had been issues reported. And we were collecting again information with our Sapphire product. So in this here, you can see 1 bar per access point, and this was over a couple of days or period of week. What are the retry rates? Average retry rates per access point. So you can see that some access points are way higher than some others, and this is an indication of potential roaming difficulties. The same for the client devices. So certain client devices, what are the retry rates? And the ones with the higher retry rates may be experiencing more issues. So retry rates and data rates are great indicators, showing whether the client is being served well over the radio. These are the data rates for the same. So you can see there is a good accumulation here at the high end, but still a lot of here at the low end, indicating that the connection may be weak. So this is the downlink, and this is the uplink. How what the clients are using when they are sending data up. All right. Then finally, enterprise example, and this example is with our 7-signal Mobileye product, which uses agents which go to the Windows, Mac, Android devices, and here you can see a signal strength compliance. So we have certain thresholds for meeting the minimum signal levels as measured by the client devices. So you can see here first compliance, how compliant is the signal level against the targets. And here you can see some more details with the absolute signal levels that clients connected to certain access point on average have. So like here around minus 60 dBms. And then eventually here you can see lower signal levels as well. So you might want to look at these some lower signal levels to understand better, are there specific clients or is this a common behavior with this AP? So you can drill in from there to the statistics per access point. So again, this is a list of access points here. You can see different PSS IDs. I have hidden some information here for security purposes, but anyway, you can see different access points here. You can see the different signal levels. This is the maximum signal level reported. This is the minimum signal level reported, and then throughput data. So the agents makes measurements like throughput measurements to determine what's the connection speed there. So you can see actually here with the minimum signal strength, you can see a lot of low values. So all of these are pretty interesting. You may want to see, take a closer look at these and okay, when did this happen? What's causing this? There are some very low throughputs as well, like here. So these are great indicators, when you want to look at the roaming performance. And then from there, you can actually select one access point, like here. You have chosen one access point, and then you drill into the further details. You can see each client device here. You can see there are, Macs and Windows devices. They have certain adapters, Wi-Fi adapters, certain driver versions. They are using certain channel, and these are their signal levels, and then the throughput values. So these can be great indicators for troubleshooting roaming issues in networks. Okay, so to sum it all up, some best practices for roaming. So overall, optimizing the RF coverage and utilization is the base for making any network work, and it's important for making the roaming work as well. So you should target that 50 to 30% overlap with minus 70 dBm coverage, at both bands. Remember to make the 5 gigahertz transmit power levels 6 dB or more higher than 2.4, because otherwise 2.4 will be stronger at client device, and clients will initially go to the 2.4, and you don't want to have that. Keep the link balanced, so don't make a very big power level differences between uplink and downlink, meaning access point and client device. Otherwise, client may hear the AP, but the AP doesn't receive any more signals from client, and that's not good. So to keep things a little more in control, you might want to limit the power control range within a few dB, so that the roaming patterns don't change that much. And you might want to set 12 megs or 24 megs as the lowest rate, allowed rate. Well, use secure roaming, but remember the limitations. So don't turn on the R on without checking that your clients will actually cooperate and work well with that. Do enable K and V. Those will help terminals and as well the Wi-Fi gear to work better. Turn on the E and QBSS. Clients can help that, use that. But remember that iOS 10 and forward may make surprising decisions regarding roaming when those are on. Do not hide SSIDs, but for some reason, if you do, remember to use K and V and avoid DFS channels if you can. It will help. And then use those Wi-Fi vendors roaming features. They will likely help, but it's good to understand how they work and make sure that you are getting the expected outcome from your network when you turn them on. All right, and that concludes my presentation. And by the way, you can download this presentation if you go to our website here, and as well we have a roaming white paper what is available for download. So if you wanna take a look at those, you are very welcome. So that's all. Now I think we are open for some questions, and Tom, you might want to host that.
Okay, excellent, VP. And yes, the most common question we had was, can I get the presentation? So you've answered that.
Okay,
just
good.
make sure you go to go.7signal.com/CWNP. It's on the screen there, and you can get the presentation there. And they're also making a white paper available to you related to roaming as well. So some very good information, and we do have quite a few varied questions that have come in, so we'll try to get to as many of these as we can before our time runs out today. First of all, the question was asked, is the method that you explained specific to 802.11r or is it generic? And I think you actually covered, after that question came in, multiple different roaming options. So that probably answered the question, but you covered several, and the basic options for secure roaming with WPA2 Enterprise or 802.1xe, of course, is the 802.11r, FT, and OKC, right?
Yeah, I'm just scrolling back. Here are the alternatives. You have here, right, exactly.
And then someone said, I didn't catch where it might have been in a slide or something, but someone said, what is roaming forward? You want to explain the difference between that and a roam back?
Yeah, exactly. So roam back means that you were already using one access point, and then you roam to another access point where you have not been yet. So that's kind of roam forward. But if you would roam backwards or roam back, if you go from that access point where you were, the second AP, and then you go back to the first one, and that's the roam back. Basically, if you were there already, you had already the keys created. So if you have PMK caching there, fast secure roam back, then the roaming is fast going back.
Exactly. Okay. And then a question came in, could 802.11v, in your opinion, be used to inflict denial of service attacks? Or does protected management frame protect it, or does it work in a different way where it's not susceptible to that?
I think that is an excellent question. And I think there are a number of aspects to that. And I think, the thing is, of course, that again, you cannot force the client roam, but what you can do with the transition management here, you can issue a disassociation imminent. So you can disassociate the client if you want to do that with this command. So you could basically, get rid of an AP client which is doing something you don't want that client to do. So I think that at least offers capability for doing that. I'm thinking there might be as well some other factors to this with the other V functionalities, but I'm not able to now, thoroughly analyze that here. But this transition management request could be used for that.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that disassociation imminent for most AP vendors is something that can be enabled or disabled. So if you don't want the APs to force a client to move, you can disable that feature. But it is also, I believe in my experience with how it works, the disassociation imminent tells the client, look, you need to move pretty quick because I'm going to disassociate you, but it's up to the AP to actually do that disassociation and break the link. And so even if someone forms an action frame to try to spoof the AP and say that's going to happen, they won't actually be able to break the link with the AP by just sending that to the client. Probably worst case scenario is the client does find another AP to move to, and the worst possible case scenario you could see is the DOS attack might be able to force that client to bounce around to several APs, limiting its throughput capabilities and things like that. But I don't think it's going to be like the old deauth frame attacks and things like that that we had before protected management frame was introduced.
Okay, good.
Okay. Let's see here. So Howard asks, how valid or accurate do you think the SNR calculations are that are actually computed by client radios?
Yeah, that is another very good question, and they do vary a lot. Obviously, we have seen a number of blog posts, and you can see that pretty quickly. Individual measurements can vary a lot between measurements, even though the device might not be moving. So there's a lot of variation there. That's for sure. So I think some kind of averaging there is needed to make sure that the information is as accurate as possible. But it's definitely not a lab equipment measuring the signal level as SNR. It's a chipset which has capability, but it's not its main function, so the accuracy is limited.
Exactly. And we often hear to design your wireless network for your worst client, and I tend to add to that, don't forget your worst client, because there's variation in a specific client. So you might have an iPhone 7 and another iPhone 7, and they're seeing very different signals at the exact same location. And so what that tells you is they're not calibrated, they're not perfectly tuned devices, and there is variation. So whenever you found your worst client, count on it, there's probably in that client pool some that are a little worse than others, and that's just what you're going to have to deal with in your design. Another question that came in, Bruce says, great presentation, VP. With regard to removing lower data rates, is the 6 megabit per second, of course he's talking 5 gigahertz, is the 6 megabits per second PLCP header being lower than the payload data rate a concern?
Well, it's the PLCP header only, so CCA can see, there is some traffic, but if you disable the lower rates, then the whole frame is not received properly, and that may help with, client determining that, okay, it's time to roam. I'm not even hearing this beacon anymore properly. It has errors when I receive it. So that may help. Generally, we have not seen that being a problem. We have seen a good success with manipulating these lower rates. 12 or 24 being the lowest ones. 12 being the most common that we have used. We have not seen really problems with that.
Yeah, and with well-designed 5 gigahertz, you can separate the cells a lot better than you can in 2.4 gigahertz. I think the bigger problem tends to be in 2.4 with the 1 or 2 megabits per second headers, and the co-channel interference that is generated even when you disable the low data rates, because of the fact that they can hear that signal and have to wait to talk. But I think generally in 5 gigahertz we can build our networks a little bit better because we have so many more channels to pull from.
Yeah, good. Additions, thanks.
And here's one. I don't know the answer to this myself. It's a good question. Eric says, does iOS only use 11VK for WPA2 Enterprise, or does it use it for WPA2 Personal as well? Do you know that?
Let me go back, because I did collect some of this information. I think it supports both. That's my recollection. I don't have that information separated. I don't think I saw it separated anywhere. It's my understanding both are supported, but I don't have absolute fact here.
And then the question, why are client vendors so secretive about their roaming capabilities? I don't think we can determine the motives, can we?
No. Well, no, it's. I mean, it would be great to learn more about those. Understand how it would help with the network design as well, but they are very secretive with that.
Okay, question here. Can you reiterate the information about hidden networks and roaming? You talked about the impact that hidden networks have on roaming.
Okay, I'll go back to hidden SSIDs. Yeah, I'm sorry, I went that through pretty quick. So hidden SSIDs, obviously two cases. So there is the DFS or non-DFS channels, and then the DFS channel. So hidden SSIDs, the beacons are always still sent. So that's the first thing. When you hide the SSID, it doesn't mean that the beacon doesn't go out. Beacon still goes out, but it doesn't have SSID name. So when you do passive scanning for the beacons, it doesn't add any value, because the client doesn't know to which SSID that beacon belongs to. So it cannot use that beacon information. So you need to do active scanning. So when you can see that there is a beacon, or in non-DFS channels, you can obviously probe. And when you probe, with a probe response, you will get, the SSID name as well, and then you will get all the details. But in the DFS channels, it adds a little bit more difficulty to that. Again, of course, in DFS channels, you can send probes after you have received one beacon, and that beacon may be even hidden SSID beacon. So, but you need to first receive the beacon and then start probing. And obviously, this receiving the beacon, first beacon, can take time, and that slows down this discovery process. So that's really the the hidden SSID. So V and K. So these can help if you think about the K. So K provides neighbor lists for clients. So it tells you that here are the 6 channels you need to scan. So the scanning is then so much more efficient and faster that will help with hidden SSIDs. So you can stay basically longer on those channels or scan more often those channels because you don't need to scan all and everything. On the other hand, V allows the network to give you some guidance when to roam, where to roam. So if your network supports V, and that can further help with hidden SSIDs. Obviously, using hidden SSIDs is not really recommended anymore. It doesn't provide much value. Some convenience, the users might not see the SSID, but the security, it doesn't provide any additional security as such.
Okay, excellent. And we have time for one more question, and I'm afraid we'll have to wrap it up at that point. But we have a question here. What is the best way to find out what a client supports in relation to roaming? I mean, other than if the vendor tells you, which is rare, what are the tools that you can use? What do you think, VP?
Well, probe requests include some of this information. I believe, for example, these standards can be seen there whether they are supported. So you can look at the probe requests, see what information they provide, and see if you can learn more. But beyond that, without some detailed testing, I'm not quite sure. I mean, I don't think we have a thorough list available, listing all those, and so that's my take on it.
Yeah, and that's pretty much the way it is today. You've got to look at your captures of probe requests from clients and look to see what they say they support. Yeah, it might be nice. Maybe it's a future feature in 7 Signal to be able to gather that from clients in an environment, and then we can go in and see a database of all of our clients and exactly what they do or do not support from the standard.
Yeah, I guess one thing to add. I mean, Mike and many know this, but just want to highlight how useful that is. Mike Albano's list of clients, and it has the V support listed for many clients, but not all. But I mean, it's a great resource there. So
yeah, and the more people that know about it and send in capture files to him, the better the list will become too.
Exactly. So that's the best centralized resource. It's become an industry standard almost. It's very good resource there.
Okay, well, VP, thank you very much for joining us today, and this will be archived on the CWNP TV YouTube channel, so if you came in late, it's going to be there for you. Make sure that you go there, watch it on the archive, share it with your friends, let them know it's available. And again, VP, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Tom. It was my pleasure, and looking forward to talk again maybe sometime.
Okay, excellent. And everyone, remember, you can go to go.7signal.com/CWNP to download the presentation. And thank you very much for joining us and participating in this webinar. And hopefully we'll see you next month. Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.